Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of the Galaxy's Greatest Podcast. As normal, I've got Ollie with me. How's it going, dude?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. And we've got a very special guest, Alistair. How's it going, dude?
Going very well, thank you very much.
Good, good. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know, Alistair was the winner of the not only the UKGE but the Friday night no kaiju event and went 9-0 at UKGE. So massive congratulations, dude.
Very much.
Um,
Appreciate it.
just tell us a little bit about yourself, dude. Who you are, sort of where you play, what the local meta is as
I
such.
am an old beard. I have been playing war games for 20 plus years, and I have ran through dozens of systems over the years. The MCP and to a smaller extent SharePoint being the latest games that I've picked up. But I used to be uh, fairly I used to be like a big advocate and player in the War Machine circuit back in the day.
Oh, nice.
Uh, that's where my kind of main sort of tournament experience comes from, where I learned the trade, I suppose. And I just got into this off the back of a friend who is very much a magpie gamer, sees something and jumped on it, and then we all followed suit. Um, so I have come to really enjoy MCP because I think it is a fantastic system, and it also allows you to focus on just a handful of models. Well, let's say handful, got dozens and dozens and dozens of them at this point. But in terms of squad composition and rule sets, all very nice and tight and self-contained, and it's a fantastic system. By and large.
Awesome. Sounds really good, mate. I know quite a lot of people got into MCP through War Machine. I never played it personally, but yeah, I've heard a lot. Yeah, a lot of people came into MCP by playing War Machine, so that's really cool to hear. And you're based up in Scotland, where you go to a lot of Owls events, don't you, mate?
Yep. The Mighty Alan Gibb. He is our um, tournament aficionado and lord, and he runs them most months as much as able, and they are very well attended. And for anyone who can make it up on any given date, you'll be able to find them on Discord. Like I said, monthly tournaments easily turn out 30 odd people.
Yeah, which is very, very good. To get 30 plus people every single month is insane numbers. So he's doing absolutely amazing up there. So yeah, if anyone's in the Scottish region, whereabouts is he actually based in Scotland?
Where does Alan live? Oh, giving away personal information.
Yeah, I want postcode, I want address. No, the events. Yeah.
I think Alan's Glasgow, but the events themselves are based in Stirling, which
Oh,
is
okay.
like in the central belt, and it's got like a train station right next to it. Common Ground Games is where it's hosted monthly.
Perfect, because I was just saying, like, if I just said, yeah, if you're in Scotland, I know Scotland's obviously a very big place, like you could be in like Inverness or something, and but yes, if you're near Stirling, then it's definitely worth going to the events. But awesome. Right, we'll go through your list really quick of what you took both days. It's the same list, which is easier on our behalf, which is amazing. But yeah, would you want to just run through your characters really quick, mate?
Yes, so we've got Loki, Prince of Lies. He is the leader. Oh, 7 times out of 9 or 8 times out of 9. He's my kind of crutch most of it. We've got Mighty Thor. So that's Jane Foster. We've got Valkyrie on foot. That's Brunhilde. And we've got Valkyrie in Elendil, which is the very fabulous Rainbow Bridge, Bifrost, Pegasus. Warriors 3, who are, I think, an excellent 3 threat. We have Dracula and I may refer to him as Chadula. That's kind of my given name, just because he's so good. Bit of Rebel, Emma Frost, again, exceptional model, King T'Challa, for when I need energy damage, and Mysterio for the lols.
Awesome. So out of the list, obviously you've got four splashes. You got
Mhm.
Dracula, King, Emma, and Mysterio. Did you run every single character over the weekend, or?
No, I was fairly tight or uninspired in terms of my list composition. Um, I think the only splashes that made it in over the weekend, I think the only splash was Emma Frost actually.
Oh, okay, that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I think that was the only non-Asgard model that was played.
That's really
Is that
cool.
down to playing access to tactics cards, things like Rainbow Bridge, or is that just due to them being like filling a gap?
It depends on the mission. So, for instance, Mighty Thor and Dracula are obviously interchangeable in terms of their points, and but it depends on the mission at hand who is going to be employed, I suppose. They both have decent staying power. Dracula obviously has better. If he's going to be a target, he's got better damage output than Mighty Thor, maybe, but he rotates potentially slightly less well than Jane does. So it's quite a mission and opponent determined factor who gets played in that place. In the same way, like King T'Challa, he would fit in instead of, say, Loki, if I were playing into Convocation, where Loki's mystic attacks wouldn't be particularly meaningful. King T'Challa's energy, huge dice pools are obviously going to have a lot more impact overall. Is kind of like the thought process. So generally, if it's each of the each of the splashes is like a surgical piece depending on mission and opponent.
Makes complete sense. We all know sort of Mysterio is very good with Loki, with like Grand Illusion and that kind of if you're on a really tight map, that can be really backbreaking for people. And yeah, it makes complete sense with if you go into Convocation, there's no point really bringing Loki. Obviously, he's great for like the little ping damage and placing characters too, but damage output, he's not really doing much to the wizards, unfortunately. So it makes
No.
complete sense. And what's the sort of thought about Emma? Was it just like mainly the displacement? Was it another mystic attacker?
So Emma's there for. She's so good.
Yeah.
Just full. I, quite a lot. She's excellent as a safe-ish midline grab. She's good at tanking. Whether certainly early is exceptionally good at for that like mid lane, where you can grab and then potentially being cover 5 dice. It makes you very resilient, especially with like a Loki reroll, where you're effectively rolling potentially 6 dice plus cover. It makes you very hard to shift. Um, and she is just her damage output is decent. Her control element is pretty good as well. She is just an excellent all rounder, and she has the potential utility of stopping displacement on models like Loki. Loki hates being displaced. It's very inconvenient for him. So she is good in that aspect.
That makes definitely a lot of sense. Ollie, have you got any more questions?
Yeah, so I know the like threat balance. You haven't got a 2 and you don't go above 5. So I suppose when you're building a squad, are you normally kind of on the taller end of your squads, or do you think you're kind of somewhere more mid-rangey when you're trying to build a squad?
Mm, If I get the option for it, like 17 is kind of like, I suppose, the sort of game standard, and I've got a very comfortable 17. But the core of what I'm playing will generally be Loki. It will generally be Warriors 3, and it will usually almost always have Valkyrie and Elendil. But I think the only model I think I played every single game was Valkyrie and Elendil. There's flex around the rest of the list. So like I said, I would generally, my go-to leader is Loki. And we can talk more about that in a wee bit. But if I were playing in Convocation, I probably wouldn't be taking him. So I might be taking, for instance, Mighty Thor, Dracula, Valkyrie and Elendil. That's taking us to 14, and then either Betty Bill, or if I wanted a piece not to move, maybe Emma goes in there. Um, and then it depends on obviously the values that we have available. But that's kind of like the thought process.
Would you ever look to go like Valkyrie, other Valkyrie, and Warriors 3 and try and go wider, or are you trying to
That's
control
it.
priority?
That is no, that'd be fine. That'd be 20. So that would be Loki. I think that was literally one of the lists for the 20. So that'd be Loki, Mighty Thor, Valkyrie and Elendil, Valkyrie Brunhild, and the Warriors 3. And yes, that comes to 20 for those five. Because at that points value, I would expect the opponent to be at least 5 as well, maybe 6, depending on their list composition. So the list is not dependent upon always retaining priority. I'll usually have priority because I'll typically only be running a 4 model list. But if it doesn't have priority, it's not a massive issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're trying to create control priority, aren't you? Really, with the kind of aggressive models.
But equally, a lot of it's based on attrition. So Loki's game plan a lot of time is attrition. So if I have to burn Odin's Blessing and take some damage on a particular model and do 2 damage to said model with Oh My What Pay, then that's fine. I'll take that damage, absorb it, and then I'll be ready for the counter attack for a model that's lost 1 or 2 health after that. More if they've had to hit Dracula, for instance, or the Warriors 3 with counter attacks.
That makes a lot of sense. You say Valkyrie was the kind of character you used every game. Sorry, as in Elendil Valkyrie. Often when I've played against her, she feels very brittle, and that's outside of Asgard. Do you find that she's still quite brittle? Because she does look like, on the face of the card, she looks like no
She is.
defensive attack, very low health.
She is. She is. She is. She is for the cost. She is the softest model, but she is also a very fast and flexible model. So I find that she is worth taking for all the other reasons that aren't her survivability. Her survivability is nothing to write home about. And you've just got to kind of live with that and accept that she was going to go down, she is going to take damage, and you can mitigate it in some ways. You have to be quite good with your placement if you want to try and get the most out of her, and you also potentially have the fallback of Odin's if you really don't want her going down a particular point.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you're playing the kind of standard squad, you say of kind of the 2 5s, Valkyrie, and then one of the 3s. Are you using Valkyrie early, or are you trying to hold her until like middle of the round to wait until somebody's a little bit more fragile for her to pick up on? Are you chasing extracts with her? What's kind of an usual game plan?
It depends on, I would say, as a rule of thumb, it's probably 2 or 3 activations in. However, if there's a particular play, or if I want to say we were playing senators, and I I might want to go up, use can't remember this one, need a ride, something whatever the rule is, the place from her, and then move up, throw a spear, place into the middle, gain your power, and then maybe grab a senator. I'm willing to take the damage to maybe lure more people into the middle. And that's just it's just a play that I'm potentially willing to do, depending on the enemy's ability to put out damage, sort of close to the midline. And yeah, that's kind of it. Most of the time, she's putting some damage and finding herself in a relatively safe flank, but I am willing to use her as a bit of bait at times. But she's very good at helping models like Thor, who obviously can't reach the midline with a single medium move. With the extra place, now she's in the midline helping out with that. Or same for can be good for Loki if you want to get further up. And potentially maybe get a double tap on someone for the following rounds or get into a really good forward position. So her extra place at the start of the turn can be very good. It's not necessarily you don't have to use it all. It's just a good flexible model to have to help reposition your forces. And obviously having a two range place on Warriors 3 is massive because they're such a large race. So it means their relatively short movement means that they're up in the enemy's deployment zone. That's the amount of distance you're getting out of them, which is quite impressive.
Yes,
So
that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of Warriors 3, do you find you taking them over Valkyrie? Because obviously, if you're taking Valkyrie a lot, the kind of assumption would be you're taking other Valkyrie and getting the use out of Pride of the Valkyries, or are you using a more with Warriors 3 and using them aggressively?
Warriors 3. Warriors 3 are by and large tougher than Valkyrie and probably not by a small amount. And they are just a very flexible model. And while some of their attacks are nothing really to write home about, if you make enough basic attacks, if you over the course of your turn and your opponent's turn have made 4 attacks, just the nature of MCP will give you results at some point. Just the nature of the dice will turn up results, even if it is just 4 dice attacks. As anyone who's played Nick's Grunts will tell you, it's just like, I'll just keep shooting until damage comes, and it will come.
Oh, Nick's grunts are like they're by and large they do more the most damage output in the whole game.
Yeah. So the Warriors 3 fall under very much the same principle. And their ability to move and heal, effectively having aggressive plus, is just very useful. They're just a very good 3 threat. I mean, they're not, if you hit them with enough concentrated damage, or a couple of big attacks, they will go down relatively easily, same as any other 3 threat. But if you're just hitting them with like fairly wheedly 4 dices and 5 dices, they will prove surprisingly difficult to shift.
Yeah, that healing after an attack. Obviously we see it on APOC, and he can be a nightmare to take down, especially with the lower like 4 and 5 dice attacks. So yeah, makes complete sense. Awesome. Should we go into your team tactics cards?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. What have you got, buddy?
So we have the ubiquitous Odin's Blessing. So Odin's Blessing is if anyone doesn't know, is a damage mitigation card. You pay 3 power, and all the damage that you suffered, whether that be 2 damage or 18 damage, turns to 1 damage. Or in the case of the Warriors 3, 0 damage after the end of the attack. So it's just you will not find an Asgard player who is all there who hasn't taken that card because it's very useful. Next, any questions about that? Or are we next one? We'll
No,
just
no,
jump past these three.
I think Odin's Blessing, yeah, is absolutely staple to Asgard, as you said, with Warriors Free and with Bill. They just take
Yeah.
0 damage with it, which is just insane. So it's very, very good card.
We have joint effort, and joint effort is my secret sauce. It is. I can go into, so basically, joint effort is stapled to my Loki. The reason it's stapled to my Loki is that it is exceptionally good when you combine joint effort with his spender, and it becomes even better when you combine joint effort with Loki spender, Rainbow Bridge, and go forth. And suddenly you have a dog pile of your other three models standing next to the opponent's models, who are now all getting hit for +2 to 6 extra dice on each model hit.
That's pretty good.
Mm.
That sounds like
Uh,
my kind of sauce. It's
and most teams will just evaporate under that. Um, and yeah, that's what the
I suppose even if they don't, you get the displacement. I suppose the advance away, especially if they've already activated, can be debilitating.
yes, a big one. Rainbow Bridge is your again staple Asgard card, which is really great movement card, expensive to use, but it just means you have the ability to consistently make as many attacks as possible. And since, as the keen viewers will have noticed, this is a very attrition-based list. So the more attacks that you can make, the more quality attacks you can make on any given turn, the better. And this allows you to stay on points or to get back to points if you've been displaced. Allows that big knockout turn with joint effort. It allows you to chase after objective holders and get to places you really don't have any right to be in. So again, it's a very, very good card. Can be a bit niche. It takes a wee bit of forward thought because it is limited by you carrying objectives. So even though you might want to be carrying an objective, you might have to hold off if you've got a play in mind that's going to require you to use Rainbow Bridge.
That was going to be my next question, just quickly. Is there any characters that you just refuse to pick any extracts up just because you know that Rainbow Bridge will sort of come into the game a bit later?
I will generally try and hold off picking up objectives with Loki for that reason,
Yeah,
because it's very important for Loki to teleport into position, probably shoot someone with his builder, and then set off his nuke.
yeah, definitely.
And so yeah, that's generally
Also, as well, I mean, spoiler alert, but it's very good with without having an objective with Giant's Blood as well.
mhm, mhm. So Giant's Blood is not a card I used, but it
There
is
we go.
there. No. But so Giant's Blood is very good. I think potentially more in Loki's other affiliation, probably more, where you're not looking to have him be a damage dealer. Um, and I think potentially I included it in case I was playing against like Web Warriors, where I wanted the ability to have a slow and a root, which obviously they both hate. Um, but by and large, I'm looking to do damage with my list. So this, so rooting and slowing people isn't inherently that beneficial to me. I want to be where they are, and I want them to be dead. So if they're going to get dazed from my efforts, there's not a huge reason to slow them and root them. It definitely has its place and it can be useful. It's just not as useful in 95% of the games that I'm going to try and work my game and plan into.
That makes perfect sense. That does, as you said. I think, yeah, Giant's Blood's very very strong in Kingpin Crimson, but I can see why you might not necessarily take it in your list. Definitely.
Doom Prophecy. Doom Prophecy is much like Loki's Joint Effort Bomb, is one of my, I'm doing air quotes here, like finishing moves. Um, it's like one of my like big plays. So I will combine Doom Prophecy with Valkyrie and I like the Ride of the Valkyries, and I will have 3 attacks that turn with +4 dice in each of them. And I would typically expect at least, I'd expect 2 models to get down by Valkyrie in that turn, just because of the weight of dice. Because someone's going to take a 9 dice attack, someone's going to take an 11 dice attack, and then there's a very good chance that, say, an expensive model is also going to take 14 or more dice. And yeah, just most models don't survive that much output.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very good card, and as you said, it can be quite good. Like in a round that you know that it's gonna sort of finish that round, whether you know it's a win or a loss. So like it can be a very clutch card of just being like, right,
It's,
let's just go all out now and
it's all in,
try and
yep.
get it. Yeah.
You
Um,
say about on Valkyrie. Do you ever do it on Warriors 3? Because
you
obviously
definitely
they've
could.
got a very similar, like a
Mhm.
finisher move.
You definitely could, and they are good. You could play that into them. They get just 1 less dice, but they obviously could get lots of attacks still. And you potentially have, if you're playing into, say, Guardians of the Galaxy, it's really good there because 90% of their attacks are energy. So you've still got your defense. And you're also like when you do all your attacks, but you've also got your clapbacks, and your clapbacks are also now 7 dice clapbacks. So potentially with the Warriors 3 is potentially very good, depending on the matchup. It's just with Valkyrie and Ride of the Valkyries, if you've got that 7 power, you can pretty much go anywhere and delete anyone. Because you've got a massive place off of a large base. You've got elusive triggers rolling 9 dice, potentially with rerolls, which means you're not guaranteed it, but you are very, very likely to get it. Which means you've got another small move. You're going to generate a whole bunch of power. You can then do a bot place. So it means, say there was an objective holding individual who's very far back, you can hit one of his friends, maybe knock them out, and then fly very, very far to the backfield and catch them and maybe grab the objective as well. Get that second kill. Um, so that's kind of it. And if you've got the other Valkyrie, that's a wee Brucey bonus there. You can get it's another wee attack. But by and large, I would try and combine Ride of the Valkyries with Doom Prophecy, or it's a big game ending attack.
Yeah, makes perfect
Uh,
sense. That does.
then we've got Warpath for that's pretty much stapled onto Dracula, though there's a lot of Asgard guys who could make use of it as well. I think we need to do an overlay on that. That basically just allows, certainly in Dracula's case, get back into position, get that really good clap back, and just get the conditions out as well. Means you can stay on your objectives and just keep being an absolute nuisance, absolute terror in the night. Um, Wisdom of the Ancestors is again each of these kind of stapled onto their respective characters is just there to take King T'Challa's 10 out of 10 damage up to 11 out of 10, and obviously increases survivability a wee bit. Trickster's Boon is a slightly more corner case, potentially gives you an extra point, but is very good with mostly Emma. I feel Dracula and King T'Challa generate enough of their own power. And Mysterio, I'd be reluctant to use on because his damage output's not particularly good. Unless someone was like on 1 health or something like that. But I think in general, I would be maybe using that with Emma Frost, where if she can get a lot of power, she can get a lot of attacks off. If she had like 9, 10 power, she could throw, she could use her spender. She's got a wee bit left over. She makes two or makes one other builder. She might then get enough up for a lash. So you could potentially make, say, her area attack hits two people, then she's got her throw damage, then she's got her builder damage, and then she's got her last damage. So you're potentially making 5 or more sets of damage from her, which can be pretty impressive. People generally don't expect Emma to be massive damage dealer, but she can be, certainly with that combination. And you get a cheeky wee victory point into the bargain. And finally, Grand Illusion. I'm sure this has been covered in other podcasts, but that potentially with Loki makes the Loki bomb even more heinous. I've never actually pulled it off. I've never even used it, but maybe one day, theoretically, it would be devastating. And you can still use Go Forth. Obviously, it's not an option with Rainbow Bridge, with Mysterio not being an Asgard affiliated model. But you can get a wee bit of placement to make it into a good position via Loki. And that's all the cards.
Sounds really good, mate. Sounds like you've got like a plan for every single tactics card, which is really good. Just trying to think if there's any tactics cards that sort of.
So the one question I've got is, you haven't got any restricted cards, no recal, and obviously, if you speak to most players, they're kind of like, those are so good, they've got to be in my roster, and they've got to be in my 5. What's your thinking of not even just taking them in your 5, but not taking them in your 10?
Too Chadley for them, I suppose. No, kidding.
Fair enough.
There's just, I have a tight set of cards so it's Odin's Rainbow Bridge. Those are must-haves. I'm playing Loki 90% of the time, so that's a must-have. So that's left me with 2 cards. If I give up, say, Bride of the Valkyries, that means Doom Prophecy's ability to affect the game is reduced significantly. And so Doom Prophecy and Ride of the Valkyries have to kind of go together. So there's just not the space for those restricted cards. And as much as maybe you'd like Recal or Indomitable, in this list, it's just not viable. So I don't tease myself with them. I just stick to my game plan.
Do you think the same is true of other lists? Do you think people are kind of limiting the options by taking them all the time? Or do you think it's just this list in particular?
This list in particular is inflexible in how it applies that violence, I suppose. But it does apply that violence very well. So to deviate from that is to somewhat scupper yourself. So don't. So, and yeah, it depends on who, or it depends which affiliation you're playing and which tactic cards, and without setting them down, which faction we're playing and how we're utilizing our cards, it's quite a difficult one to know when it is necessary to take your restricteds or take your recal without really kind of getting down and vivisecting the list in more detail. Some will can definitely play without them, like this one, and there's some lists that you would probably be shooting yourself in the foot not to take them, just because maybe your list of cards is just not as restrictive. I think if that answers the question in a kind of like mealy mouthed, avoidant kind of way.
No, I get that. I think the community is very like, it's got to be too restricted, and recal has got to be in your 10, and then it limits you to 7, and you've got 2 slots left, and it's normally the one affiliated busted card. So it's nice. It's a kind of interesting take that you haven't taken any restricted cards, and you've obviously gone 9-0. It's almost kind of bucking the trend and showing that there is almost a reliance on these cards.
I mean, they're just good cards, like the ones that have been described. But it depends what you have access to and what your game plan is. Like, do the cards exist that will help carry out that game plan? I suppose is the other sort of consideration. Like Asgard's cards, the ones I've described. Um, it's just what four? It'll always be like four Asgard cards, like every game, pretty much. And they're all very good at doing what they do. And yeah, it's just as kind of is what it is.
That makes perfect sense. It's as Ollie said, it's really nice and refreshing to see a list that hasn't got any restricted cards. So yeah, I love to see it. Was there any other questions, Ollie, or should we get into the crisis?
No, I think that's everything from me, tactics cards wise.
Awesome. Right, we'll get into the crisis cards. So what crisis cards do you take, mate?
What have we got? What have we got? We've got intrusions, deadly meteor. Oh, I don't know if these are mixed up. Wedding
It's all good.
party, Mayor Fisk, McCran. Got deadly legacy, Montesi formula. Which can just be quite funny with Warriors 3 when you get to make 4 or 5 attacks a turn. Inhumans deploy advanced weaponry, fear grips, and mutant extremists target US senators.
Sounds good. Obviously, hammers, intrusions, fisk, all of these sort of major attrition secures and extracts make complete sense. I'm guessing the game plan with senators is just everyone just gets stuck in the middle, and it sort of makes Loki's spend even better.
I mean, the gig's up now, yeah. So basically, that's the idea. Like, everyone rushes into the middle and gets caught in nuclear fire, and I go, "Well, good game." That's that's
Yeah.
kind of the senators is very much a bait scenario where everyone's rushed into the middle to like wrestle over whatever's going on, and then 3 or 4 of the enemy team gets hit for 9 dice. So, yeah, that's the thought process there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty disgusting. Having if I came up against that, you probably wouldn't spot it to start with, and then you'd see it going on
No.
and going, oh no! You just hear the doors noise in the background.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. It's like, so what does joint effort do? And then like, oh no.
Mistakes were made.
Yes. So, well, I did actually. There was one example of we could play senators in one game, and weirdly, just because the way it played out, quite bizarrely, I had hoped to play that one for the reason we've just described, but Loki actually ended up babysitting the back point, just to because Namor had made a madman dive for the try and bring a bit of parity to scoring that had kind of gone away from him. But yeah, Loki, like I said, he got stuck at the back point, just shooting up Namor. But it's still, if you can take down Namor, it's generally a pretty good trade, to be honest. So yes, that is by and large, it's all fairly self-explanatory. Try and pull as many models into the middle, have a big barmy, win the barmy hopefully. And yeah, the only kind of standout one that's like, why would you have 6 scoring points on the board for mutant extremists is it stops people running away, and it also draws everyone into the middle for said hopeful kill shot and to get a early advantage with that.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Obviously, hammers is just
Well,
great.
a lot of these scenarios are actually going to be disappeared in the very near future. So
They are, yeah.
I salute them as they as they go.
Yeah, and you have a problem. No, I'm joking, completely joking.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about the new sort of updates. What's your sort of thought process like? Are you still absolutely 100% think it's going to be good for Asgard? Is it going to be worse? What's your sort of thought process on that?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think it's going to take a bit of thought, and it's going to take a bit of play, and I'm not confident with so much up in the air how things are going to play out. Because it's kind of like, oh, as it stands, scenarios, there'll be ones that can certainly utilize, and there will have to be some maybe like list recomp. But we've also got like a big update on the pipe as well. So, what does that mean for models like, I don't know, like Scourge? What does Bill look like in the future? Are there going to be any changes to Valkyrie and Elendil? We don't know. And I think it's hard to say, oh, Asgard are going to struggle or Asgard are going to be really good until we've kind of got that kind of more a wealth of information available to us.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a weird time for MCP, isn't it? Because obviously all the new Crisis have come out, and I'm really excited. I'm loving the new Crisis, but obviously we all know there's that massive sort of health buff character change happening.
Mm.
So we're all sort of like we're in a bit of like no man's land at the moment, where we're playing certain things on the Crisis now, but they might not necessarily be the thing to play with all the new changes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Asgard sort of fall after all of that. Definitely.
Yep. Only time will tell.
Definitely. Just a quick one about very. I suppose it's very sort of specific crisis, but Inhumans deploy advanced weaponry. Do
Hmm?
you ever pick up? I know obviously you say that you don't really pick up with Loki, but is this the one that you would pick up with Loki just because you could technically do a beam with 6 dice, and obviously you're counting their skulls as successes as well?
I mean, that would be an option. Also, it's all in the midline, so it might be that you're surrounded by your opposition anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe your long move plus Elendil's place means you're already on the midline making one attack. You've generated a bit more power, and you're all ready to go, depending on a few other factors. It might mean that Rainbow Bridge is not necessary at this point. So yeah, it could be.
That sounds good. Was there any questions about the crisis, Ollie? Should we go through some games?
No, I think they're kind of self-explanatory. It's trying to
Yeah,
pull teams in tight, isn't it? Really, trying to use your advantages.
definitely. Awesome. Right. Well, that's your list, and thank you so much for sharing all of the juicy gossip on the list. So if anyone plays you in the future and you run the same list, they're like, I know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't run everyone into the middle. Watch out for joint effort. But awesome. Shall we go through some of your games on Friday? Because you went into the No Kaiju event, which was just a normal event apart from no 6 threat plus, which obviously um, didn't stop you taking anyone, did it?
No, no, not in this list. It just was it's the opposition. Any Mr. Warlocks and stuff had to wait for the next day. Um, so the first game was, I think it was am I trying to remember correctly, a guy called Ollie, a fellow Scotsman. So I was playing against some Avengers, and weirdly, for the first half of that game, the Avengers were kicking my teeth in, and I don't, I don't really know why, but yeah, it was just they were just rolling quite well, and I was getting thumped about a wee bit, and but eventually, given like we have intrusions, which is pretty good for Loki when he sets off his big bomb, and Legacy Virus, theoretically should be a relatively comfortable home field advantage for Asgard, and eventually we tipped it round, but oh, got a bit of a tight early game actually. It was surprising how much damage that the Avengers were putting out, but we got there eventually. So that was our very first. I thought I was gonna lose my very first game, which was entirely possible given the kicking I was getting earlier on, but
Yeah,
um,
definitely. I think First Avenger is definitely one of those affiliations that if they're rolling slightly above average with leadership as well, it can really they can really start kicking your teeth in quite well.
yeah, I think I didn't appreciate that initially, and I was like, oh, until I was forced.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. So yeah, that was that first game.
Nice. Well, yeah, you
Uh,
obviously got the win. So well done winning the first game. Did that because the first game was quite sort of tight? Did that sort of set you up to for the rest of the evening for the Friday event?
I was like, I was like, oh, looking at like the crisis, you're like, oh, I should definitely have the advantage here. And then it was, as I said, it was actually quite a tight game.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so I was feeling a bit rattled going into the second game. And then
Yeah.
the second game, we went into Sentinels, and I had never played Sentinels before. Um, so I had a bit of a system shock, pun intended, in terms of being introduced to like the Mega Sentinel, who I'd never seen on the table. I'd kind of read like the stat lines and stuff, and I was like, oh, this model is very impressive. Um, just so flexible, just very, very good. Bastion was quite impressive as well. He had he's a very, very juicy four. Um, got a wee bit of luck early on. Bastion had come forward. I wasn't too keen to overcommit against the Sentinels, so I'd thrown Bill's hammer against Flying Bastion and did a big heap of damage to him, like 4 damage through tough, which kind of had him fall back quite the thing, and we were able to kind of then take that and go on a bit of a hunt after him, and I think that was a game where I was playing with Lady Thor rather than Loki. We managed to push up, and during one of the beam attacks from Bastion, who was injured, he was counterattacked by the Warriors 3, who pierced the one defense he had and basically took him down in his own turn, which was quite backbreaking for that turn. And it allowed me to also then go with Valkyrie and Elendil, who had been bullied quite badly, I'll say, by the Omega Sentinel, and were able to then do a Doom Prophecy turn into the Omega Sentinel, and even though it took 3 9+ dice attacks to bring her down somehow, so they managed to get the kill on that, and that was again quite a big points flip because of the maneuverability. I was able to flip the back Macran Crystal. I was also able to get the Omega's objective and fall back and protect my own backfield um, point. So there was quite a big points swing that turn, and it was on that turn that we got called dice down. So that's why the score reflects that.
That was the first dice down, was it, of the
That was
evening?
the that was the only dice down that I got
Oh,
during the tournament.
nice. That's good. Yeah, so going on about Bill. Bill doesn't generally use Summon the Storm too often, but obviously
Mm.
all the Sentinels being flyers, I can imagine it was quite good to use that.
Yeah, it seemed the more prudent move to be kind of hang back and use that rather than overcommit with like a less effective 5 dice attack.
Definitely.
Um,
How did you find Bastion with the leadership with getting less power?
didn't love it. It wasn't game breaking, but it was when you're getting chipped, it's very annoying. It can be, oh, well, Mighty Thor, for instance, oh, she's been hurt for 2 damage. You get no power, and it's like, I just, yeah, that doesn't feel good. Um, so it can be quite it can be problematic into Asgard, I think, and especially if you've got like a tall Asgard playing into multiple three threats. Luckily, that wasn't an option for Sentinels during the Expo, but I can imagine that might be a bit annoying getting chipped by multiple small attacks and getting no power from it. So we'll see how that matchup plays out in the future, but I don't have any more like personal data to
Yeah,
say definitively one way or another at this point.
makes sense. I can imagine. Imagine it's quite tricky sometimes if you've got like 4 health left or something, and you know, like if you take 1 or 2 damage on the first one, you've got the power to Odin's Blessing the second one, but obviously that
Mhm.
leadership's just been like, nope, you're not getting it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it
it can
has.
be quite frustrating.
Yeah, it can be more impactful than you maybe take into account for.
Yeah,
Um,
Did you find generating power was still okay though? Because AMG talk about the kind of new Sentinels as being they don't give out damage power, but the way they kind of balance them is generating power off them taking damage. Did you find that was still the case, or
hmm. So when I was attacking Mega Sentinel, she would not go down. She was just absorbing so much damage. So that she was quite a hard one to generate power into. You can generate power. Like for instance, it seems I had a reluctance to attack the basic Sentinel as I'm like the basic as a Mark IV, um, just because I knew it could be repaired with a card. So I was then more inclined to attack the 5 threat Sentinel, but then that has the effect of giving the rerolls to the rest of the team. So it's a bit of a catch 22 in terms of targets. You obviously can attack Bastion, but Bastion is a very certainly when he got his card, is a very resilient model. Especially even for a 4 threat, he seems very difficult to take down. Um, so yes, you can generate power, but you're also generally making your life harder on the models that are worth attacking. So they are a difficult faction to target priority into, I think.
yeah, I definitely agree. I think the obviously there was no Prime Sentinels at this event, were they? Because they weren't out at this point. So I'm guessing,
Mhm.
yeah, it had the Mark IVs and the Sentinel Prime. There's too many primes in in
I was like
Sentinels now.
the 5 threat, the 3 threat, the 4 threat.
That's it. That's a better way of putting it. Yeah, the free threats. Yeah, but yeah, Amiga's very very good. The fact, obviously, when she's in her mystic form, getting 2 extra rerolls on attacks, so you know, chipping the damage through while, and also gaining power from that. So when you target her, she'll just turn into physical or energy, whatever you're targeting her with. She can, yeah, be a nightmare to take down.
She is quite impressive.
Awesome.
It's a
Well,
fit.
you won that game, so well done, mate. And then going into the last round, what did you get?
And the last round was just a bit of a bloodbath, being hammers and stakes, and wedding party. So a bit of a brawl, um, and obviously amplified by the use of hammers, which we're able to utilize fairly effectively, and just kind of power through power through the sort of the Dracula models. I suppose the Dracula. I suppose it's going back to like the cards we were talking about, like where are cards usable, and somewhere like Dracula where you don't have an associated like deck. Like it seems automatic that you would maybe include, you know, your restricted and your recal and stuff there. Um, but yeah, in this game it was just a big fight, and Asgard just fought fought a bit better in this case. Generally, try and target everything around Dracula as much as you're able to do so, bar that sacrifice turn. But yeah, just try and pull down his minions before. Unless you have a turn where you can bring enough damage to bear with like one or two kind of big powerful blows, like with Doom Prophecy or maybe the Warriors threes attacks with their spender, where you can get the extra 5 off the threat level of it. In this case, my list is quite well suited between Thor, Warriors 3, and Valkyrie and Elendil to taking on like high threat targets and doing them a lot of damage in like one activation. If I've got the power.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to Odin's Blessing, that definitely helps out if there's a round that you need to take out Dracula, but you're worried about his clapback. Obviously, Odin's Blessing's just it is no pun intended. It is a blessing to have that card. So you're just like, well, yeah, you can clap me back for like, the spender and whatever you want to do, but it's only going to deal 1 damage.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that was that the Friday event, which I was fortunate enough to take first in then, and I was also very happy to have won the painting competition as well, which was a
Oh, lovely! Well done,
wee
mate.
extra. Yeah, I was quite pleased with that.
Just coming to England and taking everything. I see how it is.
Grand Slam over the weekend, then by the sounds of it.
So yeah, very
No,
satisfying. That's a good.
definitely.
So the Friday, that was
Well, yeah,
wrapped
massive
up.
congratulations on the Friday. Did that give you sort of were you looking, was it did it give you more pressure for the Saturday winning the Friday event, or were you sort of like
Not
obviously
at all,
much
actually. So I was fortunate enough to win the Friday event last year,
yeah.
in the warm up event, and then got trounced in the following days, just to keep me humble. But I was very happy with just winning the Friday event again. I thought, oh, that's really good. That's really fun. I won that event like back to back, and I won the paint competition. So I was like, I really don't mind what happens over the Saturday Sunday. I'm really happy. I would be happy if I get 4-6 over the weekend. That's kind of like would be my hope. Or maybe try and take like a podium place if I'm feeling particularly um, spicy. But yeah, no, I was in a really good mood. Pretty buoyed up.
Awesome.
Without
Yeah.
any hard expectations going into the Saturday.
Yeah, well, spoiler alert, you were feeling very spicy, so you end up trouncing everyone on the Saturday and Sunday as well. But yeah, so should we go into your round 1 on the Saturday, mate?
So round 1 was against Criminal Syndicate, and we ended up playing Inhumans, Deploy Advanced Weaponry, and we had Deadly Meteors. And this, because I was very fortunate, we ended up playing um, Deadly Meteors. Because, and I don't know if that's recorded correctly or not, because you would think they would play Kingpin into Asgard if they had won the Prio. That might be recorded incorrectly. I can't remember. So anyway, what we ended up playing Deadly Meteors, and with that in mind, that meant that we were going to play against Shadowlands Daredevil rather than Kingpin. Now, I was very lucky in getting this because I think playing against Kingpin with Asgard is a very difficult matchup. I can rotate fairly well, but it's just hard to get enough out before getting scored out. It's a very difficult matchup, in my opinion. So, in this case, a bit of luck. We play Daredevil, and there was a few highlights in this game. There's Lady Thor was taking on Rhino, and she was taking on Ironmonger. She wasn't winning, but she was dying slowly enough that it was decent. We had the early play was Daredevil and Ninjas ran up, grabbed 2 objectives. Pretty good, pretty tight. That was responded with by the Warriors 3, double moving up and then buying and killing the ninjas um, with their bot attack. And then on the flip of the turn, Daredevil hit the Warriors 3 for 1 damage, which they healed, and he brought back his ninjas. The ninjas attacked the Warriors 3, who did another damage, which they healed. They then counter-attacked the ninjas, killed the ninjas. Then Daredevil made a second attack, brought back the ninjas again, who then attacked the Warriors 3 and subsequently died to the counter-attack. So, in the course of that game, I think to the Warriors 3 probably took down the ninjas like 4 or 5 times. So just
Very
just heaps of ninjas getting beaten to death with like lumps of ham.
so thematic though, like just waves of ninjas coming and they're going, "Come at me!"
Back to back bros. So that was quite funny. And eventually, Shadowlands Daredevil was proving quite difficult to take down, as you might expect with his radar sense, even with concentrated attacks on him. And eventually, Loki managed to get into position to not finish him in his 2 attacks, which was a bit disappointed at, including a relatively small Loki bomb. But Shadowlands Daredevil survived that, but he was left on 1 health. And then when he eventually came to try and strike back, he went down to Oh My What a Pity. And there was a bit of back and forth. The 2 boys had beaten up Lady Thor just with weight of attacks. She was struggling into them for some reason, maybe just dice majority of. But she was doing her best and kind of keeping a bit of parity in terms of like throwing them off the points. And the kind of the game ending move was when Valkyrie and Elendil got Doom Prophecy and managed to 2-shot Black Cat and then hit Echo and just 1-shot her to take them both off the board. And at that point, it was just getting close to getting the table before it scored it out. So thankfully, yes, I was lucky in that and getting the scenario that I did. I think the alternative would quite potentially have been a much harder game and or loss.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Looking at obviously him winning Prio, I mean, he could have obviously picked your blues. Like, hopefully, I don't know whether obviously Deadly Meteors and Mcran came out. Like, obviously, because you've got 3 non-pay to flips. I know they're quite killy for Kingpin, but maybe his game plan was to pick them. I've got no clue. I've got no clue.
No.
Um,
Part of
but
me thinks that might have just been recorded incorrectly
yeah,
on Longship.
potentially, yeah.
But I could be wrong. So that was that first game. It was a fight, obviously like a fighty Daredevil list, and it gave not quite as good as it got, but it definitely did put a lot of damage. So that was that. But yeah, the Warriors 3 were definitely MVPing it for a while. Certainly, if nothing else, just for the laugh factors.
Definitely a theme coming here with Warriors 3 being MVP.
They did well. So the next game is against Shield, and your fellow podcasters.
Yeah.
Or, and that was Mutant Extremists. So that is we had the center, and I was hoping to maybe pull off a Loki bomb there and some deadly meteors. The early plays were where Shield had moved up and grabbed one of my senators with a Black Widow, which I was quite surprised by, but it was aggressive play, ballsy. I liked it. What it allowed me to do was get amongst some movement shenanigans, starting with I think I started with Warriors 3 who ran up, or it was either Buckley and Ellendale. She moved up through a spear, and I can't remember if I'd placed the Warriors 3, but then I think that was, yeah, they placed the Warriors 3, and then she went. So very first move, I think, was with her. She then got a good spear, 7 dice attack into Black Widow, and then I think placed on the roof, grabbed her own points, or did the center point maybe, and did a decent chunk of damage to our Black Widow. It then also gave the Warriors 3 a good position to get up the board and counter grab some other objectives and flip his home meteor, which was good. They were only really threatened by just the way the board setup was by Amazing Spider-Man. Nick and Namor were on the other flank. So Amazing Spider-Man, no, not Amazing, Spectacular Spider-Man is not a massive threat to the Warriors 3. His displacement isn't particularly useful because they're aggressive, and his attacks aren't really that spectacular in terms of damage to easily put them down because of the healing factor that they have. So that was like it was that dive from the Warriors 3 was relatively safe. And then Mighty Thor came up and was in range to attack Widow. Did the last 2 or 3 damage to her with another good roll, and then because the senator had been placed further back, I then Rainbow Bridged, which I would never. I generally never used Rainbow Bridge this early, but I Rainbow Bridged Loki forward because he'd been shifted some power using his leadership, and I Rainbow Bridged her forward to grab that senator. Um, and that just kind of gave me a lot of good board presence, really far up the board and threatening a very significant points disparity on turn 1, which led to then Namor. So Nick had moved up, grabbed some objective, did Nick stuff. I think that was his like second move. And then Namor had to try and equalize that disparity, drove my home points to try and flip the point, which I think he failed to do, unfortunately, and damaged him in the process. Just some poor luck, and he picked up my home senator, but also left him in position to be double tapped by Loki, who had teleported forward using Rainbow Bridge. And on the 2 attacks, Namor rolled skulls twice, and he died. Uh, and then the next turn, Loki had double tapped him again and took him off the board.
Ouch.
Yeah, so that was not a good run for Namor, and that kind of set the ball spiraling at that point. Because effectively, I think I was just scoring like 5 points a turn most turns. Maybe 6 even sometimes. So yeah, Namor was off the board. Spectacular Spider-Man kind of got beaten up by Lady Jane and the Warriors 3. Black Widow got taken off board. Yeah, basically the shield got tabled quite quickly, and that just led to the kind of. It was to be fair, like my opponent's dice were not good at all in the defense department. They failed them quite miserably, and it just meant that early damage like spiraled into like a scenario deficit, and it just then the wheels came off the bus.
Yeah, definitely. I'm surprised, especially Namor leadership. I'm surprised he went quite ballsy because obviously rolling skulls against Loki is not good at all. But with the Namor leadership, as long as they're within 2 of one of their allies, he could just try you keep rolling out of skulls.
Yeah.
So it's a bit
Yeah,
of a shame it
about
got isolated.
yeah, a bit of a bit. It's one of those like it's like well, uh, probably just need lose going down so heavily to an attrition list
Yeah.
in points in turn 1 is obviously pretty rough. I think that was just like right, okay, I'm going to just have to risk it for a biscuit here and try and claw back some points disparity. So unfortunately, it didn't pay off.
Yeah. Sounds like. Also, when you say Black Widow, is it the two, three, or four threat Widow?
Fourth rate, I think.
Four threat. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
That's probably why he
Um,
thought, "Oh, I'll just go and pick up the air senator. 'Cause just if I get killed, then I can just place it somewhere." But yeah, quite scary doing it with her.
yeah.
Still,
So she unfortunately, because I think Widow has martial artist, I believe, but she took both those attacks from range 3, with the hammer and the spear throw. So
yeah,
unfortunately, that just the weight of dice just did her in on turn 1, and then the Rainbow Bridge obviously just stole her objective anyway. Um, but yeah, it was a risky play in my part. I generally don't like using Rainbow Bridge like that, but in this case, it put a lot of pressure on early doors, and I was kind of happy with that. So
I suppose
yeah.
on that kind of
Sounds
crisis, being able to put the pressure on like that forces your opponent to almost overcommit, so you can punish mistakes again afterwards.
yeah, that's kind of it. Because it means he has to come in, take the senators, going to slow his movement down, or this is movement options. If he's going to flip points, he's potentially going to take damage into that. If he's going to make attacks, once Loki's centralized, he can take damage into that. It just means like the attrition factor is just going to play that bit harder. So yeah, that was that game. Bit of a sore one, unfortunately. But these things happen. MCP dice be MCP dice sometimes.
yeah, 100%.
So that was that. Game 3.
Yep.
So game 3 was into Tony Moore, and this was the mirror match. And this was Inhumans and Wedding Party, so very brawly. The Asgard lists were very similar. We had Loki and Loki. We had Lady Thor and Lady Thor. We had Valkyrie and Elendil. And the only difference being that when he was a purist and took Enchantress, and I took Emma. And Emma in this case is very good because Emma cannot be moved. It's a struggle for Loki to damage her with his base attacks, and Emma cannot be moved by Enchantress. And she has enough of a dice pool to shrug off most of the damage from each of her attacks.
Sounds really good, and yeah, Emma doesn't worry about if she's if she's targeting a character and she's only got one health. She doesn't really care about what a pity because obviously
Mhm.
they can't use it in her activation. So yeah,
Yep.
she's very good in that list, definitely.
So that was that. I gained some very big advantages in this game against her, being that the prio wasn't really important. As you can imagine, our scenarios probably weren't widely different. But what was more important, because we were both running 4 model lists, it was that Tony won the role to go first. So it meant that he had to then commit to the midline first and just had to be the first one to basically start taking damage with whoever had gone up. So basically, it was 3 model. It was on one flank. It was his Lady Thor against my Lady Thor, and on the other objective, it was his Loki against my Loki. Elendil, and Emma and Enchantress. And I had the advantage there in that I believe Emma is better than Enchantress. She can absorb damage better than Enchantress can, and she cannot be displaced while everyone else can be. The additional factor that meant that I won the attrition relatively soundly was that both Enchantress and Loki were using area attacks against models that were very resilient to their mystic attacks. So it meant that, say, Loki did a clever ploy. Maybe my Loki takes 1 damage, but maybe his Loki takes 1 damage as well. And then Enchantress makes 2 attacks with her beam, who maybe she does maybe 3 or 4 damage over my 2 models. But it also means in a lot of cases she was taking 2 damage from Oh My What a Pity. So it meant when I hit him, it was generally landing with greater effect because I already had that advantage of having done a bunch of ping damage with Oh My What a Pity. Um, and on the other flank, his Lady Thor was doing better than mine. Again, I had the advantage that because I was going second, I could more easily displace his Lady Thor to score the point at the cost of taking more damage than his. Which turned out to be more. My Jane was losing the fight, but not quickly enough to affect the score, as that's kind of reflected in the end event. And in the end, it's able to basically remove most of the models and control the scenario relatively comfortably. But a lot of that was, in fact, down to Tony being unfortunate enough to have to go first, and that caused
Yeah,
a bit of a
definitely
disparity.
reminds me of the the Guardians Thanos mirror match where it was just whoever rolled Prio lost because obviously the other person could just react on it. Um, but obviously Emma being very very good there. Did she spend much power to stop Enchantress moving people about?
Uh, Generally, no. Most of the time, she was in. Most of the time, I think she was in crystal form,
Okay, yeah.
but it just meant that she wasn't going to be moved, and that just meant that. And Valkyrie and Elendil just made. They weren't rolling particularly well, unfortunately, but they are better into damaging Enchantress than his to them or Emma, and it was just lots of factors that just meant that the attrition game was more comfortably mine.
Yeah, definitely. I think Asgard are always quite good into Enchantress because they always start obviously every round with 2 power, so they can
Yeah,
easily just pay that power straight away to start putting a lot of damage into her. So yeah, sounds very very good. Um, awesome. Well, you're 4-0 at the moment. Are you feeling quite good about your like for like you're 7-0 over the whole weekend at the moment.
well, no, we're not. Well, so we're only 6 just now, unfortunately. We've still got a game against Hydra for the 4.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, yeah. So you're 3-0 at the moment, and
Three
then you
no.
go into the next game.
Yeah, so the Hydra Curtis player, his models were beautifully painted. I thought they were really nice. Lovely guy. Was very comfortable. I was getting a wee bit tired at this point, but it was fine. Um, and we had a big old 20 threat barmy, and that was Montesi and Wedding Party. And it was a very funny game. So early doors, his I'd run up and grabbed the center point with the Warriors 3, and they had a wee bit of cover, despite being a very large base. They are only size 2, so they were partially skulking in the building. And Red Skull came up and tapped them for like 3 damage, I think. And they counterattacked him, and they rolled 3 hits and a wild. And Red Skull one turn took he ended 1, I think, which was pierced. I think he took like 4 or 5 damage after the bleed, which was obviously horrendous for him. Um, a very good trade for the Warriors 3. Most of the Warriors 3 counterattacks don't do a huge amount unless they're against the ninjas. But if you roll enough, eventually you'll hit wild, you'll get a pierce, you'll get a bleed, and sometimes that's enough. And in this case, rolled really well and did a whole whack of damage to. I was going to say poor Red Skull, but screw that guy. He was a bit sore after that, and that meant he had to pretty ignominiously kind of flee the field a wee bit. But that was kind of like the highlight, and Curtis, unfortunately, was the weekend's receiver of the biggest Loki bomb. And in one turn, we had Loki knockout with a. He rolled very lucky and he knocked out Spider Woman with his builder. He then used the Loki bomb and took out Abomination, almost killed Zemo, hit Black Cat, no, hit Red Skull, who was about to die to it. So he very bravely used Sacrifice, and that hit Black Cat. So she then took some damage, pulled forward, and then so when it was her turn to take the next attack, she was now in range of the Warriors 3. So then she went from taking a 5 dice hit to a 7 dice hit, and she popped as well. Abomination, if I had said it, he went down. Zemo took a lot of damage, and yeah, basically the whole Hydra crew got pretty much dazed in one turn. Valkyrie also managed to sneak across, and the foot Valkyrie managed to sneak across and get Red Skull with her charge. And it was yeah. When the tides turned, they turned pretty heavily. And Lady Thrower threw a toilet on some Nazi grunts, so that was good fun, and we all had a laugh.
That sounds very,
Um,
very good.
so
Sounds
yeah,
like a very brutal game.
it was, and Curtis seemed a really nice guy, and to his credit, he was like, I, the thing is, the Loki bomb is worse at higher threats because there's more models on the field, and they tend to be moved around and clumped up, and it just means like whole teams worth of guys are taking massive hits. And he had never quite experienced such a war crime before. But after the game, he was like, "It's so well designed to do what it does in that moment. It's some very clever thinking." So he was very complimentary for someone who'd been probably abused like that. So I take my hat off to him. He seemed a lovely guy. But I'm sure he won't get caught by it a second time. So that was that. Everyone's most hated Nazis were chucked in the bin, unfortunately, at a 20-7 score. So that was that game, and that was the end of the Saturday. And I was very surprised that I had got to the end of the day 4-0. So I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah, it definitely did really, really well, mate. Did you do much on the Saturday at Expo, or did you sort of go home? Well, not go home, obviously, because it'd been a long way for
Hell
you
of a
to go.
drive.
Yeah, but sort of like just sort of get more of composure for the next day, or what did you sort of end up doing on the Saturday night?
Oh, we were just I was down with friends, and we were just kind of going over the day's events, the games played, the board games we had um, picked up, just getting like sort of general the vibes for the event, get some food and things. Um, so yeah, that was kind of what we did.
Awesome. Well, obviously only two games on the Sunday.
Mhm.
And yeah, you're currently 4-0 in this event and 7-0 throughout the whole weekend. So yeah, you were doing really, really well at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
could
and
have lost the
then
next two games, and I still honor would have still been upheld. Um,
yeah,
so the next game was against Avengers, and this was one the other game where I used Emma because the rest of the tournament was pure Asgard, and I used Emma here, and the first thing that happened was we had obviously both relatively brawly teams, had Emmas on both sides. We had Cap 3. We were against King T'Challa, Luke Cage, Emma, and is that it? Or maybe not. I'm not sure. Yeah, 16th right. Yeah, that seems right. Against by Loki, Emma, Warriors 3, and Valkyrie and Elendil. And it became a tug match, so Luke Cage came forward, took the center Montesi. I then hit him with Luke Cage, hit Luke Cage with Emma, pulled him forward slightly. He was then pulled back with Avengers Assemble, and there's a bit of a tug of war. Loki came forward, hit him, pulled him forward again, and we were eventually able to take him down and grab that point. The Warriors 3 were able to tank King T'Challa's attacks due to terrain, giving them a bit of cover. He still took a fair whack of damage, but they managed to do their job and hold on to the objective. And I was able to ping quite a lot of damage via counterattacks, bleed, and pity onto King T'Challa, which quickly spiraled into Luke Cage and King T'Challa being KO'd by turn 2. I think that's what it was. And I was feeling very confident at this point. I had dazed, I think, Emma, and I think I'd only had the Warriors 3. And then what occurred was one of the greatest comebacks you'll have never seen. And Emma, in her crystalline form, blew up. I think she killed 2 of my models from full health with her spender. She took it out of Valkyrie and Elendil, and I think she got someone else. It was very hard. I thought the game was very comfortably mine. Start of turn 3, but I got my team. I was getting their absolute teeth kicked in. Captain came across, and at this point, it's Emma and his Emma versus my Emma, and Loki versus Captain. Um, and the Warriors 3 are still up. This is quite prudent. So the Cap had attacked the Warriors 3, had done some damage to them, and then they had counterattacked him, and they had done no damage to him, but they put bleed on him. He then proceeded to finish them off and bounced the shield, did more damage, and then had done a charge and the following turn, and that had dazed Loki, and then on the following turn, Captain had then moved, attacked, and charged, and in 2 attacks had spiked them both massively and took Loki from 0 down to 0 and from full. And at that point, I was like, "Oh, that's game." The only upside to that was on his first attack, he had rolled a skull, which had pinged him down to 1 health, and then he died to bleed. So now it was just his Emma versus my Emma, and we were. And then I was also stunned. His Emma was not stunned, though his Emma had maybe taken 1 damage, and I was in the problematic position that I didn't have extract, his did, and the score was very much, I think it might have been parity at that point. So I had to move his objective away from him, not do damage to him, not stun him, though it looked like that would be quite important going forward, because I had to have my Emma move forward, because I couldn't, the problem being that I couldn't move to a position, pick up an extract, and get back to my point to keep us scoring properly. And he basically means he would win the game. So I had to move at the start of the turn objective into the middle so I could move and get the objective and the extract. He then moved up, attacked, and wasn't able. He had to move because otherwise the game would have just kind of went on indefinitely. So if he hadn't got the trigger and moved me from range, then he'd have lost because I scored the objective out. So he had to move up. We didn't really do any damage to each other. He didn't do any damage to me at that point. And then, so it's the last turn. I'm going to try. I activate first. His Emma's got like 5 health left. I have to kill her because if I any other option, he's going to have the movement abilities to get me off this point because I can't use my reactive to stop me being moved. So it's literally just dice. I roll 5 dice, do 2 damage. Roll 5 dice, do 2 damage, and then rolled for the lash, and all came up positive for an extra 3 damage. And it swung back and forth really wildly, but it was very much like a nail biter, and everyone around watching the table, obviously watching it with like great mirth at that point. I thought it was a very funny ending, and yeah, my opponent was fantastic. We had a good shake and a good laugh at the fact that we'd managed to pretty much table each other.
That sounds like sounds like a very, very tight, close game. As you said, like KOing King T and Luke Cage end of round 2 obviously makes you feel like, well, this is definitely in the bag. But yeah, sounds like he kept his composure, didn't tilt, and sort of looked at his outs and very nearly got it off. So yeah, sounds like a really good game.
So close, and obviously that's reflected the fact we did neither of us could actually get to 16, so it ended 15 all. So that just leads us into the final, and Angus had not lost any games. He had a draw, so he was paired up, and so this was another shield match, and this was under Nick's leadership, and again, I was very lucky to win the prio roll when I did, which meant we ended up doing intrusions rather than something more shield favored, thankfully for me. And alien ships as well, which is not ideal for Asgard because it's very likely they're going to have all that power and start blowing up. But most of the time, a lot of the models have like decent health pools and can maybe absorb it a wee bit. But it's fine. It is what it is. You can generally utilize it to make sure the opponent takes some damage as well. So this was quite a built-up, terrain-heavy map in this kind of sort of desert village, and I was lucky in that. So his team, if I can remember correctly, was Nick. Yeah, so Nick Fury, Dracula, which I was terrified of, Okoye, Rescue, and Spectacular Spider-Man. And I was using Loki, Warriors 3, Elendil, and Lady Thor. And I had to move up Lady Thor straight away to make sure that I could grab the point and the cube, because I just could not afford to let the grunts get that, because it's just so difficult to get it back off them. It's just so inefficient chasing them and putting them down. So I had to use the 5 threat to grab the objective that they were opposite. And then Lady Thor comes under hails of barrages from Nick and the grunts over the next sets of attacks. Which did her decent damage, but she at least had a bit of cover. I was fortunate in that Loki had went up to the middle, but because where the building was placed, it meant that a long move was not possible for Dracula to get into the point and make his range 2 attack, just because the building was sitting right in front of the objective. So I was fortunate with that, and the flanks were being contested by the Warriors 3 and Valkyrie and Elendil. Most of my attempts to damage initially were focused on Rescue and Spectacular, and the game was very evenly paced in terms of score initially. It was relatively evenly paced in terms of sort of damage output. I was it took me a little while, but eventually managed to get rescue down, get spectacular down, and then my Lady Thor had been flipped, but we'd done a bit of damage, and the big she then teleported across and had been hunting Okoye with her extract, which she was successful ultimately. But the big kind of deciding factor for that match was when Flip, Valkyrie and Elendil got a Doomed Prophecy turn, and I knew that Dracula was still on the board, and I knew Sacrifice was still in play. So I said, may as well get this over with in my head. I'll attack Nick, knowing that it was going to go into Dracula, and we used the spender, and the spender at this point is 14 dice. And the 14 dice attack into Dracula, obviously, knowing there's not going to be any rerolls because of the card, the 14 dice just one-shotted Dracula off the board, dazed him. And then that allowed Valkyrie and Elendil to do 2 attacks into Nick and take him off the board as well. So in the end,
that's very strong.
Yes,
that combination is, if you haven't got ways of dealing with it, is such a like sledgehammer.
yeah. It's you don't, depending on who's got prio, it, sometimes it doesn't go off. Sometimes because you have to have it realistically. Either you have to be very far back with a lot of power, or you need to have prio. Because if you try and trigger that and you don't have prio, they're just going to immediately take you off the board. Because it'd be madness not to. So sometimes you have to wait for the opportunity, and sometimes you have to be like gritting your teeth as you take all the damage and get your models flipped. But you have to kind of like stay the course and wait for the moment. So yeah, so Valkyrie stakes Dracula in one mighty hit, and then takes Nick off the board. Jane takes Okoye off the board, and at that point we're going into turn 3. I've got some flipped characters. Most of my characters except Loki are flipped, and it's just Dracula left, and that's just, and we close out the game.
Well, very well done, mate.
Yeah.
As I said, yeah, absolutely smashing it, not dropping a single game is very, very impressive. How are
Mentally
you?
exhausting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was just like, I saw, I shook Angus's hand and then let out for Asgard. As my muddled brain went to meltdown. But yeah, it was a bit of an endurance task over the 3 days, but it was a really good event, and such a good result.
Yeah, as I said in our podcast, Duncan did a really good job with the event. We went a little bit into like the terrain last year wasn't the best, and obviously Duncan did very well of getting everything sort of more to MCP standards this time round, and did very, very well. Yeah, really, really enjoyed the event. Awesome. Have you got any questions, Ollie, about the games or?
Yeah, the one that kind of strikes me is a lot of the affiliations you played into are very kind of attrition focused or kind of mid rangey. Do you think some of the games would have gone differently if you played, say, into like the Kingpin Crims, or you'd got something like X-Men or webs that are going to want to play like B shapes and kind of wider crisis? Have you got like a plan within the list, or like the way you'd play it that would
Yeah, lose nobly. Um, I would say I was very lucky getting the matchups, getting the scenarios that I did when I did. And I think to argue otherwise would be both disingenuous and just not, yeah, it would be just disingenuous. There is an element of luck, like going 9 games in a row. There's a massive amount of luck there that allowed me to take those games. They are just that much harder if I was playing those wider scenarios. The list can still rotate. Like Ucker and Ellendale are still very fast placing elusive using models, and they have access to the likes of Rainbow Bridge. They have access to Ride of the Valkyries. So two big massive places. The list can rotate. It can rotate very well, but the games are that much harder. And to say otherwise would just wouldn't be true. So yeah, I was lucky. I was lucky, as I said. Like if I'd played a D map um, against Kingpin, I think that's a very hard match for my Asgard, because my Asgard is not really utilizing many like character throws, and simply like a good Kingpin player just has the wealth of models, and it becomes very much like a dice dependent game there as well. Um, if I can get out enough damage to stop the scoring bleed. And yeah, it's just that much harder. It's just so the fact that we've got these 9 games, a lot of it is off the back of luck, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Like there is also always an element of luck at like big events because there's such a range of affiliations available, but you can only beat what's in front of you, right? You can't pick who you're playing. I mean, if we could, we'd all go 6-0, right? So
Um,
you've got to roll with what's in front of you, and going 9-0 is still hard, even if you get favourable matchups or even matchups that are like a coin flip. Being able to just keep grinding those results, especially with tournament fatigue, is a massive result. So congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely. Awesome. Right, we'll go into some Galaxy's Greatest Discord questions. If anyone wants to join our Discord, the link will be in the description below. Love to have you in the Discord. But the first one's from James Jackson. What advice would you get? Would you give new Asgard players looking to play them competitively?
hmm. I think um, I think what we've covered here will probably be quite useful.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you probably take away some useful bits and pieces about some like decent power plays. That all said, you do have to learn when to utilize them and where to utilize them. And a lot of that will just be either reps or just having like a decent knowledge of Asgard.
Yeah,
There
that
are
makes complete sense. Yeah.
there are a number of Asgard models that are probably suffering from old age. And when I say that, I mean there are some like I don't think Tony disagreed. He thinks Enchantress is really good. I don't think she's fantastic. And in the same way, like Garge is okay, but he's probably a bit behind the curve. Angela's become quite behind the curve. So there are some really great models in Asgard just now, but there's others that are a bit dated. And I suppose knowing which ones they are would probably help with your win rate. But that all said, got a big update coming, so that'll maybe breathe some life into the models there. Yeah, like I said, that update will hopefully mean the likes of even some of the newer models like Thor 2, who's a pretty terrible sixth threat, will be usable again, and that'll mean more combinations that are possible, um, and some different kind of play options. So yeah, there are a tall list. There's a lot of 5 threats there, but yeah, get the Warriors 3 on the table, and yeah, profit.
Yeah, you definitely sold me on the Warriors free. With talking about them. Yeah, they sound very very good. I've only gone against them once, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, they sound very, very good.
They definitely have weaknesses. Like if they're well going up against anyone who's martial artist, their tiny like dice pools generally aren't particularly good. Even against Akoi, they were struggling. But against a lot of other models, they are really good. Just a consistent. They're not great attacks, but the whole list concept is about quantity of attacks in some ways. Like Loki's bomb is about quantity of high quality attacks. Valkyrie's is about quantity of high value attacks. But the Warriors 3 make 3 attacks in their turn. They make 1 or 2 attacks in their the opponent's turn, and that's not quality of attacks. That's just quantity. And eventually, you'll get a pierce, you'll get a bleed, and getting a bleed on the opponent's turn is always painful for them because it means they're probably going to take 2 or 3 damage on your own turn. Plus pity, I can stack up very quickly if someone's unlucky.
Yeah, definitely. And there's that perfect sort of counter where you leave them on 1 health, and that's their second action, and you give them bleed,
Yep.
and they're just like, well, there's nothing I can do about that.
Yep.
Definitely.
But
And then, oh, sorry, carry on.
yeah, I was just gonna say, but be used to the counter attacks doing nothing as well. Just come to terms with that. A lot of the time they won't do anything, but when they spike, it's hilarious, and yeah, gives you a nice high.
Yeah, 100%. Got a second question from James Jackson.
Mhm.
What do you consider are Asgard's best and worst matchups, and how do you handle them?
Really strong scenario play. So I think Criminal Syndicates is a very hard matchup for Asgard, possibly because you're going for a bunch of kills, which isn't a problem, but the rotating and keeping the damage up is very difficult. Additionally, if you're playing into models like Shang-Chi, Black Cat, Kingpin, who have all got staggers, staggers are an absolute bane of this list because it's all based on a quantity of high value attacks. So when you get staggered, that quantity of value attacks decreases. That ability to rotate gets decreased or negated. So while you're also trying to play into a very high um, scenario based team. So I would say a good Kingpin player is going to have quite a significant advantage into this.
Do you ever think the Thor 1 leadership gives you almost like an answer to that with the ability to remove staggers? Or do you think the loss of like Loki or Jane's leaderships hurt you a lot more?
It's a difficult one, and it is a viable question that I've asked, but I don't think Thor 1 is that good compared to some other options, and like some of your other 5 threats, and it's hard to justify getting them in there for that potential scenario that's you're still going to be struggling on the trying to get that attrition win, and I don't think he's contributing enough to get that attrition win. So he's giving you an out for the staggers, but he's not giving you enough to in the overall attrition game to make that to balance that out, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, definitely makes sense. That does.
it's like it feels like okay, well Jane's got like she's all what she got for her charge. She's got like 2 rerolls. Is that better than staggering the opponent? Not necessarily, but in that match it is because it means you're more likely to get your throw off and you're more likely to get more damage out. The stagger against criminal syndicates is less useful. It can be good, but it's not necessarily that useful. It's putting them down, getting them dazed.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. That does. Okay, next question from Andy. How do you think the health changes are going to affect the game overall?
I was thinking about this one, and so it means there's more. damage, which then translates to just a tiny bit more power. It means a tiny bit more power on the model that's done the KO. So it means potentially an extra spender during a game. But it's a very, very difficult question to answer in isolation. Like, is it one health point across 90% of the models? Or are we going to look at more active changes? Like, I don't know. Don't
Suppose do
honestly
you look
know.
at it from your list point of view? Because obviously you're running four
It will
wide
be, it,
14.
yeah, it will. I think Tench will it weaken Asgard? I'm not sure. I'm generally not sure because I'll be a liar. I do not know. If I said like I think it's going to go this way or it's going to, I generally don't know. Well, I don't know. Will Lady Thor get? Will Jane get more health? Will she stay the same? I don't know. I don't really have. I'm not sure where the extra health is going to be targeted. Is it mostly going to be on four threats? Is it going to be across the board? I don't know. I do not know how it's going to play out. Obviously, it's going to mean more survivability. Um, but will it be meaningful enough to really change what you're looking to do in an Asgard list? Probably not. Like, will it be more meaningful if like web warriors get one health across the board, two health across both sides of their card? Probably, because that's going to be more meaningful for their defensive based tech. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one. But then maybe larger health pools, you might see things like Freya's Blessing, more defensively based Asgard um, models. Because if you've got four dice and then full rerolls on a model that now has 8 or 9 health, that is going to be a very difficult model to take down.
Yeah, definitely. You
So,
could even see Heimdall in there potentially giving more rerolls defensively or more attacking rerolls just to try to negate them getting an extra health buff if it makes sense.
I mean, I would love to see Heimdall get some significant changes because he is he's one of those models that does not annoyingly fit into Asgard at all. He is a very bad Asgard model, I think, unfortunately, despite being really cool thematically.
Yeah, I agree. Be nice to see them change that. And yeah, quickly going into sort of like who's getting health buffs and like web warriors and stuff like it would definitely. I mean, I think Webb's is slightly above the curve anyway, but yeah, getting the health buffs with the defensive rerolls. Hopefully, AMG have to be quite cautious and careful. I think who they give health buffs to because it could just break certain affiliations and just yeah, so fingers crossed not too many of them are going to get health buffs, but we don't know what's around the corner, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I suppose actually thinking about it in terms of Asgard, if say Sif gets a buff, because I know Sif's one of the characters you haven't got in the list currently. If she goes 7/7, for example, I'm not
Mhm.
sure that's what four threats will go to, and she's got damage reduction. Does she then become an interesting pick?
Hmm. I really wish I could love Sif. I think the model is great. I love like the paint job I've got for mine. She looks really cool. I really don't like her. I think she's like a bad Zemo, like a notably worse Zemo for more cost. So for her to be 7/7 with damage debuff, okay, yeah, okay, maybe that'll be enough to start tipping her into something a bit more interesting. But to have a four threat that really only has range 2 attacks with 5 dice and really not much else is not particularly impressive. It's a very I find it's a very difficult sell uh, uh, to to take her. I've not been impressed with her in the past.
Yeah,
That's fair enough.
that's interesting. I quite like her, but I think it's quite nice that certain people gel with other characters more. so you don't just
Mm.
see everyone running the mono list like yeah, especially there's like the defenders at the moment just seems to be dual affiliating with everyone at the moment. It's like cool. So it's nice to see people, like run different models and appreciate different models, and yeah, that's really really cool.
This is true.
Um,
Well, that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I want to see, I do like just see the meta, like, oh, just shoved in a box and shook, and then just let out, just to, right, okay, right, let's go. Like, what's the new meta? What is it? What does this look like? What do the new combinations look like? That in itself, I enjoy that aspect of the game in a big way. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we'll get it July. Hopefully it doesn't go back any
Yeah.
further, but who knows? Who knows? You slightly sort of spoke about Thor 2, but Duncan, shout out to Duncan, obviously running the event. He's put, as Thor 2 was absent from the winning expo list, what changes do you think are needed to make him viable, another viable pick for Asgard?
How to make him viable again?
Just
I
change everything,
think
go back to normal, how he was.
probably. So the pounce is obviously less good than it used to be. So that could probably go back to its non-4 cost. His range 2 attacks are problematic for like a 6 threat that's obviously reliant on damage. Basically, you could put him back to the way he was previously, and I think you'd probably have a decent 6 threat. Um, yeah, probably. I think that'd
Do you,
probably be it. But
do you give him
like
peerless if you put him back to how he was, like to stop him? Because you
yeah,
compare him to the
potentially.
stop the splash, but
Yeah, I mean probably. Like, and I think also if you're gonna have a 6 threat that's obviously so attrition based, you probably want to put his attacks back to 7, or have like a reroll, something to make them better than better than like Jane's attack. They're worse than Jane's attacks for a 5 threat. So like, why would you take him? Like he's just a big ball of health that you don't have to attack, and if you don't attack him, his really strong clapback doesn't do anything, and yeah, he's just not in a good place. I think you probably just revert him back to the way he was, and you no longer have access. You could keep the card, Brothers in Arms, obviously, off the tables, and at that point, it's just a sound 6 threat, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe if they put everything back to how it was, maybe just do the lightning arc just so it targets one character, maybe.
That'd
Because
be fine.
there was definitely moments where Thor would run in and do like get 4 wilds, you'd be like, okay, cool. Yeah, thematically it's very cool, but yeah, it was bit crazy. But as you said, it's definitely it nerfed him when they changed the throw damage. So yeah, I think putting him more or less back to how he was isn't the worst idea. But
yeah,
yeah.
maybe pulling his counter attack down is the only thing I'd want if you put him back to how he was.
Oh yes, isn't it
Yeah, that'd be
seven?
fine.
Isn't it
Yeah,
seven
that's
dice or
It's
something?
seven
So
dice,
something,
like
drop it down to 4 or 5, and
yeah,
yeah, I suppose he's a 6 threat, and that's more than King. So yeah, put it to 5 dice then, and give him his range 3 back, and call it done.
or even if you make it 4 dice, but it's like Electros, where it's you
It's
roll hits and crits rather than wilds and crits,
yeah, something
just
like
so
that's
it's
fine.
more consistent, so it feels like he's actually fighting you back. And
Yeah, obviously it's a very strong counter attack, but like if he's range 2, displaceable, and only 6 dice, like he's not that threatening, so you just don't hit him just now. Just ignore him, and yeah. What's that? And I think his throw is only objects, I think. So it's not even
I
like
think it
it's good at
is, yeah,
displacing.
yeah.
So yeah, like his self at cost 4 just now is just ludicrous. Like it's like okay, that's all my power gone. Oh, I rolled my attack and it's whiffed, and yeah, it's not very good. Um,
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think putting him back to how he was wouldn't be a bad idea. Obviously, when he first came out, it was ludicrous how good he was. But with the throw changes and all that kind of stuff, I think, um, yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. Just a slight little tweak, and then he'll be perfect, I think. Um,
Uh,
cool. Cool. All right, we've got Sean next. What do you look for across the table to determine what leader you should run, and how often is are you fielding multiple leaders, which we've gone into slightly with Jane and Loki, um, and how often is it that the abilities, how often is it that for their abilities, and how often that you have a flexibility of which leader to take in the game. So I'm guessing what he's trying to
so
say is, what leader do you sort of determine when you're going against something? When do you run multiple leaders? And is there a point in the game where you put Loki and Jane down and you see what they've got, and then you can decide then of which one you take?
generally, I will know which leader I'm taking going into the match. If it's a really high Mystic defense list, and that's going to significantly drop my likelihood of taking Loki. It won't nullify altogether because if you're still going to do a Loki bomb that's going to be 9, 11 dice sort of thing, even like Mystic Defense 4 and 5 will be overwhelmed quite a lot by that. But as a rule of thumb, I generally wouldn't play Loki into Convocation. And equally, I'd be less inclined to run Loki in kind of like D maps or squares where there's going to be a lot of like rotation required. So that's Loki's good for one kind of big rotation generally, but not doing it constantly. While Thor with her charge is more, and the room bridge as well, is able to move around the board more effectively, in my opinion. Um, so generally it'll be map dependent, but if I have won the priority role, I'll almost exclusively be choosing my secures, unless the opponent's got like the exact same sort of idea for secures. And at that point, I'll probably be defaulting to Loki. It's only if it's going to require a lot of constant rotation and or mystic or sort of energy or physical attacks will I default to Jade, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I definitely think that answers the question. Awesome. Then we've just got one last question from Tom. Um, it's quite it is quite a hard question to answer.
I'll be as evasive as possible then.
Because obviously, like, it just depends what situation you're in. But what advice would you give in decision making during games? How would you suggest getting around the paralysis when not knowing the best decision?
Hmm, that is very open-ended. This question, Scott.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
Well,
I
you could
would
say,
say to Tom, think about your victory condition, right? Are you going for an attrition game? And can you, if you're going for an attrition game, and if it's early doors, you can probably afford to fall a couple points behind. In the same way, so in a couple of these games, I was playing Marefisk, and I would not play to win those objectives in the early doors. I would play to draw them because it meant that there would just be an ongoing fight, low scoring, and everyone would be huddled around for what my victory objective is, or my victory condition, which is causing a massive bomb and getting as much high quality damage out as possible. And at that point, once the enemy team is dazed, I will happily score. 4, 6 points in one turn and take the consequences of the stun and the damage. But I would, when I want to score, it's off the back of the enemy team being incapacitated. In the same way, if you were to reverse that for a high scoring team, think about, right, what are the moves that are going to limit the damage that I'm going to take and score me the maximum points. And then at that point, you're also thinking about your mathematical, your considerations, right? Do I have enough defense dice? Do I have enough anti-movement to keep me on this point and keep me alive? It's a forward thinking what the opposition's going to do to counterplay you, and just trying to stick to your victory condition.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That's yeah, very well put. Awesome. Well, that's the end of the questions. Unless you've got a question, Ollie, we can go into something else.
No, I've got nothing. I think that's answered quite a lot of the questions I had.
Yeah, perfect. Right, going to the final stage. We're going to hot takes. This is the part where we just take people's hot takes from the Discord, and they can be very jokey, and we've just got to try to defend it. So I'm going to try to defend James Jackson's Shang-Chi is actually an absolute. Shang-Chi is actually terrible if you think about it. So I'm going to try to defend that. I don't know how well I'm going to
Good luck
do.
with this one. Yeah, good luck.
But yeah, to be fair, Shang-Chi just dies. If you just shoot him outside of range 3, easy peasy, he just dies. So yeah, he's terrible. That's about as much as I can defend him, because he does everything else so well.
We got a sniper rifle. He's easy meat. Yeah, I mean it's a hard sell. It's a hard sell, especially if you're talking to an Asgard player who's totally absent in in all sort of range 4 attacks. A reason why I take Emma for. And but yeah, I mean something like that. A range 4 attack is maybe a reason to take a dip. But something like Emma could be Shang-Chi because you're just hoping for one damage, and then maybe doing a lash. Because he's got a relatively small health pool, it might mean that you can actually potentially like bring him down and without
To be
reactions.
fair, Emma's pretty good. Isn't her builder range 4?
Yep.
There we go. There you go. So you just, but I mean, he has got 4 mystic, but we'll ignore that part.
Yeah, I mean you're just hoping for a little bit of ping damage there.
Yeah.
Throws hurt him as well, which Asgard do have a decent amount of, being able to throw 3 damage into him that he's not counting blanks on, and then if he blocks only 1, he's got 3 health left. I mean,
Yep.
3 damage in through 2 attacks isn't unlikely, so you can kind of deal with him that way.
I think your best bet in the Asgard would maybe be bouncing one of his compatriots into him with like Jane, and then picking up a Portaloo and throwing it at him maybe. So he's indirectly trying to take him out, or potentially because again his health pool's slightly on the lower side. Pity can actually be, if you're going to have to take the damage from Shang-Chi, then you can potentially pity it.
So you've actually answered my question for me. Well, because he's actually terrible. You don't actually have to put any attacks into him, so you just throw stuff into him. It's like you don't
just
need
kill him by accident. Trash.
That's it. Yeah.
Just kill him inconsequentially, like the bug he is.
I think Shang's biggest weakness is if you can get him on his backside and isolate him. And I think the problem is most teams don't have a way of doing it reliably, which is why he is so good, because he can fight over points. He can rotate really well when he's on his front side. Once he's flipped, he's fighting over that 1 point unless he's double moving or he's move charging. So I think Shang himself, when he's by himself and he's got nobody protecting him, he can die to weight of dice. so he can have games where he's just useless. Um, but he is very silly at like controlling a single point. Like you've told the stories,
Yeah,
John, in the past of dazing two characters and pushing another two characters away. Like
yeah.
he has that potential. Um,
Um, or I suppose if you want Dracula, if you're going to have someone hit, make it Dracula because he's going to counterattack. He's got those big 7 dice builders. Some of it will probably get pushed through. You'll probably do like 1 or 2 damage and a bleed, and that's not great for him on his turn. So
Exactly,
it's
terrible.
not
That's so
garbage.
hard for me to to argue because he's so strong. I've got one for you to argue, Ollie. Zemo is balanced. There we go. Fight away.
oh, I hate you. um, Zemo is balanced because he only generates 1 power in a round, and all of his abilities cost two. And there's so much stun in the game that he struggles to get to 2 power. And he has no defensive tech against throws, which there's loads of now. 5 health is nothing. If he's attacked by anything other than a physical attack inside range 2, he's getting just one reroll defensively on 3 dice. So he's very brittle.
That was almost convincing.
That was very convincing.
I was
Hopefully,
gritting my teeth the whole way through. Hopefully that didn't come through in audio format.
I was going to say, hopefully AMG aren't listening and be like, actually, yeah, we will scrap all them changes with doing to Zemo. No,
If
it's
anything, you could say he was overcosted.
Oh, if only they'd done a 4 threat version that was better than him.
Yes.
perfect. And have you got a hot take at all?
Uh, yeah. So I know it's not really. I was going to say like Emma is definitely fair and balanced as well. She is, but maybe she's just the first and foremost of the new force. Maybe that's the way to think of it. I think she is ridiculously good. She is so versatile. She is great at holding objectives. She's good at getting damage. She's good at taking, displacing people. She has got it all. And priority one is it priority one? Is that the one where it stops all the rerolls? That's busted. That needs to go. That's dumb.
Oh, is it a
I mean,
directive one?
directive one.
Directive one. That's
Yeah,
what it
yeah,
was.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Directive one. That needs to go. You can edit it so it makes me sound less stupid. Uh, so yeah, Directive One is a bit OTT. It was probably fine when it was just a bunch of limp, pillow-fisted Sentinels, but now that there's, it just feels quite oppressive against some teams. It's just like, oh, my whole stick is trying to stay alive. No, you must die now. It seems a bit much.
Yeah, to be fair, I was talking to Ollie about this the other day. I think there's a lot of tactics cards that used to be fine, quote unquote, all webbed up. It was obviously still very very strong, but with all the new web warriors, it feels like way too good. Wakanda Forever felt fine until King T was a thing. Then that's too good. Siege of Darkness was fine until IHOT came out. Now it's too good. So it'd be interesting to see if AMG sort of look at these cards and either change them slightly or just rotate them. Because yeah, I think certain cards, well, it's like Brothers in Arms. That was absolutely fine with Bill and
Yeah.
OG Thor, and now when Thor 2 came out, it was just insanely
Oh,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's fairly easy fixes, like for like Wakanda and Siege of Darkness. Like you would just be like, right, well, it costs X amount for a 3 cost character, a 4 cost character costs this amount, or if you cost 4 or more, it costs like 3 power to play, or 4 power to play, or whatever it happens to be. If you are 3 or less, then it only costs 2 power to play. Like all webbed up could be, I don't know, just 1 extra dice, or yeah, it could be any number of things. Like there are options there. Just have to see if any of it transpires into a meaningful change.
yeah, definitely, I agree. There's a lot of web warriors in our local meta. that all shout at me when I say that all webbed up needs to go. But even if you know you spent power and it slowed everyone and you didn't get extra dice, it'd still be very very strong because you could just use it more as a, you know, you're going to rotate from that side of a board and when you've got all the extracts and whatnot. So yeah, there's definitely things they could do with it. But yeah, we'll
Even
see if
making
they
it
do it.
just you pick one target, you just go, I'm
Yeah,
going to
potentially.
web them to the wall,
And beat the
and then
living hell out of that guy.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, like it just goes. You pick a character whilst they have slow, they get bonuses, or you just go, I pick that character and they get slow, and then anytime you attack somebody with slow, you get the bonus dice, so that it's not just a bomb. Everybody's slow, you beat them up and then run away, because that's kind of how the card's used at the moment. Just making it so it's not a everything's staying here kind of
That's wrong.
card. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's not a particularly high cost card either.
the true
Um,
cost is not much.
oh,
It's not a
I
lot.
suppose equally you could be like, right, okay, you can pay 2 power, and for every 2 power played, you can choose a model. Or you pay 3 power, and every 3 power paid, you can choose, and you get the benefits as they exist just now. Because web warriors tend not to have a huge amount of power, so to even choose 2 models, that would still be 6 power, which is going to be relatively rare for them to have.
yeah, I agree. I think just little
There are
tweaks will
options.
will do well. Yeah, but awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Yeah, it's been really really good and interesting to know sort of the choices of your list and what you sort of bring and how to play it. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing all that. And
That's quite all right.
yeah, the last time I'll congratulate you. So yeah, congratulations and
Thank you, thank you.
yeah, brilliant. And we will catch you on to the next episode.
Okay. Enjoy, guys.